Hello, this is Jessica Ball. Thanks for tuning in. I will be discussing my process of creating a game that simulates the ADHD experience. So, a quick overview. I will be sharing the premise of the game, brainstorming, design, character modeling, getting started in Unreal Engine 4, coding workflows, and challenges I faced, along with the future of my game. The goal was to make a game from scratch that would use my strengths of 3D modeling and user interface building to stimulate ADHD and help lessen one of the key symptoms. So to start out, for my brainstorming, I had to come up with my character design and the environmental setting. This took me quite a bit. I had been sketching mostly for this, and slowly it came together with something that somebody said, where all of a sudden I just came up with the idea, and the story and everything else seemed to fall straight in line after. The big thing, though, with brainstorming was I had to make sure that my story and my feel went along with the character and the environment, but mainly that it went along with whichever symptom I picked of ADHD. So within my design, I have TV-headed humanoids with a 90s, 2000s feel in a 4th to 5th grade classroom, simulating the class day. The focus is on inattention, and the story is dealing with people that experience a lot going on that others don't see. So for my character modeling, I went ahead and made a T-pose and then took my character's T-pose into Maya, made a simple block out with spheres, and modeled the head, which was separate from the rest of the body. And then I took the block out of the rest of the body into ZBrush and sculpted it in there after dynameshing it, and then took it back into Maya, where I retopoed it using the quad draw tool. And then after that, I used Marvelous Designer to make the clothing for my character. And the idea was that I would make a systematic structure for the character so that the character could be used for all of the different characters within the game, so all the different students within the classroom setting, and for the teacher as well. The only changes would be the clothing and the textures used for each different character, and possibly also the heads of the characters. And I had talked about possibly doing 2 other variations of the heads. So after I had modeled my character, I sent it off to my rigger, Isaiah Garcia, and after I got it back, I sent it off to my animator, Michael Harvey, and I sent him also a list of animations to be made. So, getting started in Unreal Engine 4, I went ahead and started with an empty file with just the starter content. So no templates, because I like to make my characters from scratch and do some character building and setups with movement and freedom of just being able to do everything myself with the camera placement, everything. So I went ahead and did that. Then I also started building my file structure, and with my file structure I made sure to lay out all the folders I would need, all of the widgets that I would be using within my game for the interfaces, the levels that I would have, and also just the general characters that I would have. So after that, I then went ahead and did some environment blocking, laying out all the general areas using just standard architecture from the starter content, and also using the materials from there as well. And I went ahead and built my schoolyard, and then I divided it up into the different levels so that only thing that you would have in each level is the stuff that'd be rendered, so that speed of the level and the game power is lessened. After that, I moved on to my coding workflow. So I went ahead and laid out my widgets, and I had one widget that would be on the character themselves, so that if I wanted to add anything or have something constant throughout different levels, I would have it there. And then I went ahead and made a widget for each of the other levels. And what I did within each widget, for everything that I would call for a stimuli that you would have interacting with you within the game, I went and I would make a different canvas upon that widget to then call and turn on the visibility and activate animations or different things within those widgets. And then for activating those different widgets, I went ahead and took one blueprint and made a custom event in there, made that blueprint the standing blueprint where I could then make all of my further blueprints the class of that, having all the actors' classes be that original blueprint. That then would, when called, I could go upon it and say, when interacted with, I will be able to go right off of that event, and I didn't have to make a custom event for each thing. So after that, I went ahead and was laying out different stimuli that would be kind of focusing and kind of making it seem like your mind is interacting in the world and what you're thinking or what somebody with ADHD is perceiving with the inattention and all of the different things that are going to cause you to have challenges. So after that, I went and started laying out, making sure all my branches were clean and commenting them so that if I ever came back to my work later on, I'd be able to find what I was doing. So the biggest challenges I found when working with this game was activating the stimuli. I tried to figure out a way so that I would be able to activate my stimuli and not have any errors when I started up. I wanted an animation start right away. And when I originally did it, I had a collision box on the character and a collision box on my actors that when they overlapped, it would activate that canvas or stimuli or different things to start. But what I found is if you were already within the collision box and both of the collision boxes were overlapping at the beginning of begin play, that there was an error where it wouldn't see that they were overlapping. And so I had to figure a way around this. So what I did to get around that was I enlisted the help of my friend and fellow classmate to make a line trace function that then was able to call the stimuli. And with that, I then took it a bit further by changing when on begin play, it would check what level was open so that I could then change the line trace to different lengths. For there was some levels I wanted them seated in a chair so you couldn't get up, and then there were some levels I wanted you to be able to walk around the room so you could interact with things. So when you're interacting and walking around the room, your line trace doesn't have to be as far because you're going to walk up to more objects and obstacles and get those activations happening. And when you're seated, I wanted it so that when you were seated, you could still view everything around the room and still activate different stimuli that was going on. And so I was able to get that and the line trace to work, and also to disable movement in the worlds where you were seated. Just not camera movement, but the other movement. The other thing that I had challenging was trying to get widget interaction and the movement interaction separate. What I found happen when you try to get the widget interface and the controls of moving your head and moving around the world to be separate, you needed to not use the game input mode versus the UI input mode, because they don't communicate well, and you could end up switching between the two even though you weren't hitting that switch key. So what I ended up doing was deactivating movement control when I hit a certain key, and then when I hit that key again, it would reactivate the movement control, so that I could make it so you could separately be able to interact with the user elements and then interact in the world separate. The other thing that I had for challenges was timing of the levels, because I had to make it feel consistent, like the classroom day, but I also didn't want it to feel so super long that players would lose interest in the game. So I had to find an equal footing for where it would be, and I wanted to make it timed so that it would exit out of each level after a certain amount of time, so that the players weren't sitting there waiting to complete everything and being able to complete everything, because the challenge is not to try and complete everything, but try to find the importance of what you're completing. And the other thing that I had a little bit of trouble with was finding new ways to use the widget and conveying the experiences that I have had and understanding of it with the widgets. And I found some ways to be able to do this was to use just the simple tools within it, like the background blur and the animations, that actually ended up being the easiest things and the simplest things, were the things that were easiest to help convey. Simple things like how your eyes are a little bit glossed over when you first wake up, when you're not ready to wake up from your alarm. I was told that the effect with the background blur was effective in showing this phenomenon. So for my future of the game, I will be creating all my environmental models. I'll be doing sound design. I'll be creating images for my widgets, implementing the animations that I got from my animator, and then I will be debugging along with creating the rest of the levels, and then testing my game to hopefully prove that it does in fact help people improve their attention skills. And that is all I have, and thanks for listening.